So here we go. Just exactly what you guys wanted to hear. Another discussion about Rebel Moon. I thought I would get another sci fi fan on here, my good friend Don, because I think he kind of has a little bit of the same take I have on Rebel Moon. Is it the greatest thing I've ever seen? By no means is it the greatest movie I've ever seen. But is it as trash as people are saying? What say you?
Well, I would say no. I mean, I think what what I suggested doing, of course, was going through and looking at the Rotten Tomatoes, reviews. And when I do it, it's just to me, it's hilarious. It's just like it's I don't know. It's just to me, it's a blatant. I don't like Zack Snyder for most of them, so therefore I'm going to hate this movie. And we can certainly get into it. I think it'd probably be best to kind of go through the second week of the movie. Um, the stats, of course, increased for the second week of seeing the movie. If we're looking at Netflix own version of the top 10, global top 10, number one movies, Rebel Moon, 34 million views the second week. It looks like they watched the whole movie. If you're just multiplying out 2 hours, hours viewed equals that.
Okay.
So it's not like somebody just jumped on and then they left. Apparently, so I mean that kind of answers that question for me. Now, I watched it when I was tired, so about halfway through, kind of fell asleep, and then had to come back to it. And I don't have access to Netflix right now. I just had access at the time. Um, Now, and as far as the movie, um, I think some people were trying to expect like it's going to be the greatest Star Wars version kind of movie
Mm,
because it was pitched to Star Wars. So I think people have taken that thing and made a theory out of it, and it didn't live up to that necessarily. And you're like, oh well, okay, you know. Whereas if you listen to Zack Snyder talk about it, and I've only listened to a little bit. I haven't followed this as deeply as like DC movies and stuff. But he said more like it was something he's been just creating and building for a long time. This story in his head, and it has its influences. It's kind of where it has been inspired through,
mm,
uh, and more Joseph Campbell than just simply Star Wars. It just fits that Star Wars universe well. So, um, but again, backing off from that, since he couldn't make it for Star Wars, he. I hate to say it's like people think he went and changed a whole lot of stuff. It's more like he just readjusted it. Said we can adjust this story and this idea for Star Wars. Okay, we'll readjust it. It's just a different kind of outer space kind of thing
right. Make it
that
its own thing.
has a similar. Yeah, it's its own thing the whole time, really. And so I think some people just created these unrealistic expectations, and for the people that like went into it thinking it would be something that they then said, "Well, I'm very disappointed about it."
Mm,
But if you find those people saying that, it's usually like a few stars, 2.5, three maybe, or something like that. Some are
right.
middle of the road stuff for this. And a lot of those people, like I watched some Tyrone Magnus. I don't know if you know him.
Yeah, I watch him.
Watch him a little.
I think he had a balance out of all of the out of all of the reviews that didn't like the movie. I thought his was probably the most balanced. Like
Yeah, and I thought he was more like it's a meh. It's like in the middle somewhere. It
right.
wasn't like great, but it didn't blow his mind. But he's also then saying, of course, I heard there's a director's cut, and therefore I'm looking forward to that because I've always liked his director's cuts better. So,
Right.
like, yeah, there's a whole lot of people that heard that, so they're looking forward to that. Me included. I'm looking forward to seeing the more fleshed out version of this. So for the movie itself, you know, I'm not as big of a Star Wars fan as some other people may be. So I wouldn't I don't necessarily rate Star Wars as so mind blowing as other people do. And to each their own. But this was kind of like that for me. It's just like I'm watching it. I'm like, it's a story. I understand it. I'm following along with it. And I don't know. I didn't see any places in it where it felt like this was really truncated terribly and stuff. If you're just following
Right.
it and watching it for itself and its own experience, it's just like it flows pretty naturally. It does what it's gonna do. Some things are predictable in it. It didn't seem like anything was really bad. And but watching some of these reviews, it's like they talk about bad accent with Charlie Hunnam or something like that. I'm like, I didn't notice a bad accent. Um, and I had going through the movie, I was like, it seems like he's going to be a bad guy. At some points, it's like, oh, maybe not. I mean, kind of went back and forth on
Right.
that. And so it wasn't like, to me, it wasn't like extremely predictable, except I knew the basic story, what they were starting with.
Right.
And then, of course, they're going to go into further story. So I think it was a really good like setup, but it's not a mind blowing movie, to me. But it's still good. It doesn't have to be mind blowing to be a good movie. And I like what Tyrone Magnus said. He said, I think this is the way he said it. I've never seen a slow motion shot that I dislike in any movie.
100% agree. I 100% agree. I personally, and I'm like Tyrone Magnus. This is just me personally. When I see slow-mo scenes, I'm like, yes, give me more, please. I like it. Not everybody does. And just like you said, so I don't know if you've noticed this, like if you've read the back and forth in some comment sections, it seems as though, like, look, people don't like Zack Snyder. Is like you said, is this movie mind blowing? My mind was not blown, but when I looked at the reviews, what I thought I was gonna get was just complete trash, and I was like, this was an enjoyable movie. And I think when people hear me say it's an enjoyable movie, somehow in their mind that transitions to it's the greatest thing I've ever seen. And I'm like, no, it was
Right.
just an enjoyable movie. I have seen movies that I thought were just not enjoyable. For instance, The Flash. It was just, in my humble opinion, not enjoyable. But there are moments in that movie that are very enjoyable. So I can easily see how somebody could have enjoyed the whole movie. Just because I didn't enjoy it doesn't mean it wasn't enjoyable. And it seems
Yeah, I
like
fall into that camp that I enjoyed it, knowing that there's some parts.
problems. Right.
Yeah,
Right.
but I enjoyed it for what it was
And I
and what
think
was left of it.
we have lost the ability to simply just enjoy a good movie. A good movie, we need to get back to the time where not every movie is going to be $1 billion blockbuster. Some movies are just going to be good. I don't know if you've seen The Shift. The Shift wasn't a mind-blowing movie, but it was a very well-done story. You can tell it had inspiration from Job. It's like some people said it was a modern telling of Job. Ish. I wouldn't necessarily say 100%, but ish. Yeah, I could see that. But it was just, the acting was very well done. The cinematography for the budget they had, I was like, this is a chef kiss of a movie because it was just good. It was enjoyable. we need to get back to the point where we understand not everything is going to be a blockbuster.
Hmm.
Like that. There was a time where we went to the movies, like, oh yeah, this was good, and it was just that. Oh, this was a good
Yeah.
movie.
Well, that and I mean Netflix. It didn't, they, I guess they had a really limited release or whatever,
Right,
and
theatrical release.
probably plenty of people there. But I haven't really heard anything about it. So I mean, Netflix. You're just going to watch it on Netflix. It's not going to be a blockbuster anyway.
Right.
So, but I mean, it's their number one, and what the twice as many views as the next. Yeah,
And
Leave the World Behind, 14 million compared to 34 million. I mean, Netflix is like happy. They're pleased. And whenever they release the director's cut, it's going to get lots of views. So, and then people are going to come back for part 2.
I will.
So,
I will because I thought,
oh yeah,
and
cuz I think that's where it's going to pick up. The
I
Star Wars the first movie is fine for everything it is. Everybody agrees though that Empire's better. I think everybody agrees.
so that
I
was
probably shouldn't say that,
oh
but
man, you're gonna get hate in the comments now. So but that's one thing I brought up in one of my videos. I was like, is Rebel Moon plagued by the nostalgia curse? And what I mean by the nostalgia curse is people look back at like the original Star Wars as though everybody heralded that movie as great when it came out. Now,
mm,
of course, I wasn't alive at the time, right? It came out, was that 77, 3 years before I was born. So I wonder, and I've said this, I wonder how that movie was received initially, because one of the critiques Rebel Moon got is, well, they introduced these characters, but they really didn't flesh them out. And I kind of understood that they were really telling Korra's story. They weren't really telling the story of these other characters. They were like, what do you
mhm.
call it? Tertiary characters. They were like characters
Yeah,
that are
just
introduced.
introduce them.
Right. We're not going to tell their whole story. There's going to be more world building to come. And I don't think,
Yeah, to me that's intriguing. It's like when he was going, not he, I forget the guy's name, the main bad guy, Ed Skiren's character. When he's going and they're all captured and he's walking through them and he's talking about each of them, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, cool, that's interesting. And
right.
I saw some of that during when they went to get him. They get this general, he's some kind of genius and stuff like that. But I really liked that scene where Skiren was talking about each of them. I wish I could knew the character's name.
Yeah, I can't remember either, which I'm sure in the
Yeah.
comments there's going to be, oh, you don't remember the names. It must not be good. I'm
But like
sure.
I said, I don't have. I should pull up IMDb so I can just pull the
Yeah, pull
names
the
up.
names up and everything. I should have had that up as
Yeah.
well. So speaking of which, the Rotten Tomatoes score is 23 and the audience score is 60.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, and it's been, think 23 for a while, so it ain't gonna change.
I
But
don't think
the
so.
60 was higher
It was
initially
71. Yeah.
and has gone out. But if you look at those and just go to all audience scores, I mean, I'm seeing a 4.5 star and a 5 star, and then you got 3 1 star ratings real quick, then a 5 star, 1.5, 2. 3.5, 4 stars, 5 stars, 5, and then a couple real low ones. It kind of, but then you read them, and that's where you really get the information. Now, the first one, well, since I refreshed sometime today, was a Kelly K, and it says, painful to get into, overdone in my humble opinion, but not the typical show or type of show I'd go for. Found it worth time spent in the end. So enjoyed the movie basically. 3.5 stars and not usually into it. Then I look at like their reviews of other things just to have an idea of
Hmm.
what else they look at.
Yeah, I never thought about doing that.
Yeah, so they've reviewed like Leave the World Behind, Kevin Hart and Chris Rock, headliners only, Ricky Gervais, Armageddon. And it looks like that person's just giving a basic, honest review.
Right.
and is commenting on things that they liked basically too. Let me see the second page.
So Ed,
Tetris. Oh,
so
I gotta
Ed,
see Tetris.
oh man, that's a
Forgot about
good
that.
look, man. I did not expect to enjoy that movie as much as I did. I enjoyed it so much. I went back to look at interviews of the actual creator of Tet. Like it intrigued me that
Mm-hmm.
much. There's so much I did not know. Like I always knew that game was Russian. Even before I knew it was Russian, I remember I was like, I want to say I was like 6 or so when that game came out. But the soundtrack to the game gave it
Mm-hmm.
away. Like I knew, I
This
was
is
like,
a Russian
this is a
dance
Russian.
song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ed Scarin's
Yep.
name was Atticus Noble.
Atticus.
Yeah.
Okay. Noble.
Yep.
So either Noble or Atticus, whatever.
Right.
But yeah, like I said, I like that scene.
I think he was a good
Most
bad
of
guy. I think he was a
yeah,
very good bad guy,
I
very
agree. It's
menacing.
very good. And again, the end of it's intriguing because, like, what in the world is he? Is gets to that point, and
Yeah.
I missed somehow the coiling tentacles or whatever around him
Right.
at whatever point, and I
Yeah, when he was
so when
talking
I
to,
saw it
yeah.
I saw it in some reviews, I was like, what? I don't remember that. So it's just like I don't know. I must have dozed off or
So,
something, but
but no, I'll tell you this. There's a guy I follow, and I, for the life of me, I can't remember his name now. I just started following him, and he reviewed the movie like 4 times because he said something that I thought, he said, initially I gave this movie a bad review, but when I go back and watch it again, I noticed that there's things I missed that actually make the movie more intriguing. And I think the reason these things are missed is because everyone was expecting something and not paying attention what they should have expected. Just like you brought up in the
mm-hmm.
beginning. If this was pitched as a Star Wars movie, then the critique that this is a ripoff, I think, is unfair because it was literally pitched as a Star Wars movie that was turned down. And like you said, all he did was took the script and say, okay, well, remove this, change these names, and let's just make an original story. Now,
Yeah.
when you say original story-ish, obviously is based on Star Wars. Obviously, he's already said that. So I think going in expecting this to be like completely original, I think that's unfair. And to me, this is telling. People have transitioned from attacking the movie. And look, there's nothing wrong with not liking the movie. Nothing wrong at all. People have transitioned from not liking the movie to attacking people who like the movie.
Right.
And I've noticed that in my comments. Like, I can't remember, there was one commenter that was like, I can't believe you as a black man. And I was like, first of all, what does being a black man have to do with this?
Yeah,
And he said something about shilling for Zack Snyder. And I was like, I enjoyed the movie. I was like, is it possible that I just enjoyed the movie as a good movie? Not saying, I'm not putting it on the level of Star Wars. I'm not putting it on the level of something like an Interstellar. But I went into this movie blank of anything anyone else said. And I was like, oh, that was a good movie. Enjoyable watch. I will watch the second one. I don't understand why that's such an issue for people who don't like it. There's people who love movies that I'm just like, I don't really care for it. I've never felt attacked because they love that movie. That's what I can't figure out. Like, I've been trying to figure that out. Like, it seems inorganic. Like, some of the hatred seems inorganic, but maybe that's just me.
Well, and I think some of it too, or some of the reviews I saw, were like, that's the right way to say it, and not spoil anything too, but it was like saying, it was basically kind of saying there was too much stuff in the movie. They introduce a lot of stuff that they just get rid of, like this Jenna Malone's character, the spider, whatever she is, Spider Queen. I almost remembered the name, but because I did look that one up. But and while I was watching it, I mean, I couldn't tell that was her at first, and it was like, who is that playing that character?
I know this face.
Yeah, I know that face, and
Harmata.
Zach likes to use her.
Armada.
Armada.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I remember one review being like, "So you killed off the interesting character, like Jenna Malone's character." I was like, "Well, true, but you also have to think about if you're following along with what Snyder says and what Netflix has said before. There was a plan to greatly expand it to have a video game, role playing games, and other stuff like that. I don't know how much of that's going to continue. I've
Right.
heard some news stories, but if they did do that and have video games, then that's something to explore, in other things while telling this story. Just like Star Wars, Star Wars is
It
huge.
is.
I mean, there are people. I don't know Star Wars this well, but there's people in you know that watch the Star Wars. You see that guy in the corner in the left, right there at minute 2 hours and 2 minutes and 3 seconds. That guy's backstory is da 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 da. Da. I'm like,
Yeah.
how do you know that? The movie didn't tell you that.
Right.
It's
You
like,
had to
but that's
dig
the
deep.
same thing
Yeah.
that I think. Um, I don't know if the criticism of the bar is uh I I forget who said it. It's like it's a gay bar that they go into, or it might have been Critical Drink or one of those Nerdrotic or something like that.
Yeah.
Probably Nerdrotic. And
He was
and I'm like,
blasted it.
nah, I don't know. He
He
was
was
he was.
blasted. It was enjoyable. Watching his review was
It's
super
fun to watch.
enjoyable. Yeah.
Yeah. And who knows what he'll think about, but he'll watch the next one, I'm sure too. But and I don't know, but I think some people will just say things just to, and they choose a side. It's got to be extreme one way or the other. You're either really gonna like it to get clicks, or you're gonna like hate on it to get those kind of clicks or something
Right.
like that. But yeah, I mean, like this second review I see is 5 stars. Jason L. If you liked the movie 300, you will like this film too. I enjoyed the movie and looking forward to the sequel and director's cut.
Fair.
So,
Whether it's
and
5 stars or not,
yeah,
I can see
and he only
4.
reviewed one other, The Artificial Girl, and had 5 stars for that. So, a lot of people just think 5 stars would be just, I like the movie a lot, so I'm going to put 5 stars. They don't think through
Right.
how many stars to do. But third one is Michael M. This one just makes me chuckle a little, but it's got 1 star. Some of the worst acting and writing I've ever seen in a highly advertised movie.
I didn't
Worst
get that.
movie I've seen in close to 10
I
years.
didn't get that, man. And look, I've said on my videos that I'm not a critic. I've taken flack for that, for saying, well, if you're not a critic, why are you talking about movies? Because I'm a fan. Can fans talk about movies? I'm like, man, I don't know if we've entered such a hypercritical space that, like, like I said, there's people who really don't like the movie, people that I follow and like you said, like you wrote up Nerdrotic. Yo, his review is super enjoyable and entertaining. Even though I disagree, I don't think it's that bad. But yo, his opinion doesn't offend me. And I think the thing about this movie that's odd, it's like people take offense to any good opinion about the movie. And I'm like, this is strange. Like, why are you offended that I like the movie? Like, am I not allowed to like something you don't like? How does this work? Do I have to like everything you? Because look, I have brought this up before. I'm going to bring it up again, and heads are going to explode collectively across the internet. I do not like, I never have liked, and I've watched it several times and still don't like Pulp Fiction. I do not like that movie. I do not think it's a good movie, but that's my personal opinion. My opinion about Pulp Fiction is so unorthodox. I cannot walk in any room and get just about anybody to agree with me on that. And I understand. My interest might be niche. It might be so niche that there's just something about Pulp Fiction that just does not grab me. And I don't know why people can't understand that maybe there's something niche about this movie that people like me are like, oh, enjoyable. That sends to send people into a complete outrage. I've not been able to figure that out.
To add to theirs, I don't think that I've seen that movie through at all. I think I started it once and maybe fell asleep and have seen little portions of it, and just it's never appealed to me
That's it. The hate is
to
coming.
sit there and watch that junk. So I
That's
mean,
it.
sorry,
You
that
have
movie.
you have brought the hate. They're gonna attack us. That's it.
That's okay. It'll advertise my channel there. King
Yeah.
James Bible Sunday School. Go ahead.
There you go. There you go. The
But
attacks are
but yeah,
coming.
I've never. I may one day sit down and just force my way through it. But I mean, uh,
It
I
was too
haven't.
much.
I don't think I've enjoyed ever any Quentin Tarantino movie, and
So
I'm that way.
typically, I don't enjoy Quentin Tarantino movies, but I did. There's a few I like. Kill Bill, I think is a good movie just because of the martial arts element. I think it was done very well, and I
Mm-hmm.
think there's Django. Django was another one that I thought, man, this is actually it was over the top, but over the
Mm-hmm.
top in a funny way, a funny yet serious way that made it enjoyable.
Yeah.
But I understand that there are movies that I'm gonna like that people are just not going to like at all. There are things that I'm going to enjoy that people are just gonna blast 100%. Loki season 2. Now, I don't know, and you can tell me what you think about this. I don't know if some of the hatred these mainstream movies are getting, and look, Hollywood has done themselves no favors. They have done themselves no favors. They have pushed agendas. They have pushed and gone so far that I think they have forced people into a corner, and now people are responding like an animal forced in a corner. Like, now I'm just not
Mm-hmm.
going to like anything you do, even though some of it might actually be good. Like Loki season 2, I was like, yo, this is actually pretty good. Like this is
Okay.
probably some of the best cinema Marvel has done since Endgame. Like, it was like well thought out. Of course, Tom Hiddleston, I mean, you can't go wrong with that dude, man. He does a bang up job as Loki, in my humble opinion. But I know there's a lot of people that blasted Loki season 2 again, like it was the worst thing ever. And I'm just like, yo, I think what has happened across the spectrum, um, on the right, just like it's happened on the left, is people feel like I have to hate what my tribe hates. If they
Mm-hmm.
hate it, I have to hate it too. If enough big voices hate it, I have to hate it too. And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, you can actually like some things that everybody else doesn't like.
Yeah. It's always been a lack of independent thought, um, or very few people that do. I haven't seen Loki season 2 or really paid much attention to reviews of it, so I couldn't speak to that either. Um, but I mean, most of what they've done since, well, for a while, even part of Endgame, I've just been like, okay, they're headed in the wrong direction
Right.
completely. So I'm losing my interest quickly.
Yeah,
Um,
I have no desire right now to see anything Marvel puts out in the cinema. Like, they have
yeah,
not piqued my interest. But I would understand if somebody disagreed and said, "Well, no, I like X, Y, and Z." Hey,
right.
you may see something in this you enjoy that I don't.
Yeah, that brings me to this. This reviewer going to the other movies they reviewed was like Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantum Mania,
Okay.
and his review says, as usual, critics are out to lunch. Quantum Mania was a fun ride. Khan was awesome, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing him again. The whole family loved this movie. Um, and so that's one. It's got 46% from the critics and an 82% audience score. And I saw it and I was like, that's okay. It's fine.
Yeah, it was a
It,
decent movie,
it
enjoyable.
wasn't that bad. I'm not so enthralled with Khan as everybody else. So um, that is the bad guy, right? Kang?
Yeah, you talking about
Kang.
Kang? Yeah, Kang the Conqueror.
Yeah, why does it say Khan here? But anyway, Kang. Um, yeah, I lost it for a second, and I have no idea what's going on with that. But yeah,
Jonathan Majors
I
is
don't know.
out.
Who
So
knows what's going on?
yeah, I don't know
Well,
what they're gonna
yeah,
do with that.
but yeah, I mean, I didn't mind the movie so much. Like I said, I didn't care so much about Kang as other people might, but the rest of the movie it's fair. It's okay. It's kind of close to this movie as far as like okay,
Yeah,
it was
no,
fun
I
to watch.
I agree 100%. I didn't think it was trash. I didn't think it was mind blowing. Was it necessarily on par with some of Disney Marvel's first movies? Not necessarily, but
Mm,
it wasn't what movie can I think of that just didn't hit the mark at all? The Marvels. Oh, I get Eternals.
yeah.
It wasn't Eternals. Look, I'm not gonna
Mm,
lie. I can't really judge Eternals too harshly because I didn't watch the movie. But what I did see of the movie, and when I
mm.
read the plot, being a fan of comic books, I was just like, no, no, I'm not watching this. I can I can
Okay.
I can take I can take plot changes to fit cinema. I have no problem with that. But then you start infusing things into the movie that is just like, why is this here? Why is it like this? There was no need to put this here. Okay, I'm not seeing this. So
Okay.
I wouldn't put uh Quantumania that low at all. Nor would I put it as low as, let's say, like the Marvels. I think Quantumania was a decent enough movie that had they continued with that style, they could have built back up to something great. That movie had the potential to build them back up to something great. Now, I don't know what Marvel's doing. I'll be honest with you. I'm just like, I have complete, and I never thought I would say this. I've completely lost interest in anything Marvel is putting out. Like completely. I'm just like,
Yeah. Yeah, and what makes it worse for those kind of things is like for the Marvels. We're kind of off Rebel Moon for a moment, but
that's
for the
fine.
Marvels, before it even came out, they're saying, "Oh, it's gonna make low returns because men don't like women hero movies." I'm like, "What in the world
Explain
is
Wonder Woman.
wrong with you?"
Yeah, explain
But
Wonder
I
Woman.
don't even need that. Just don't even come out saying, "Well, we're gonna make low things because guys won't watch this movie." Like, if it's a good chick flick, guys are gonna go watch it with their chicks, and stuff
100%.
like that. But
100%.
it, to me, it wasn't very good. I went to watch it. I may have watched it twice even, but
Man, you're glutton for
and my
punishment.
daughter watched it without me, and she enjoyed it fine. I kind of told her it was going to be terrible and stuff like that. She enjoyed it okay, and I guess there's some things to enjoy about it, but most of it's like, what in the world are they thinking? Why are they doing that? Of course, they're going to do these different things. It was so uneven, and I did not like Captain Marvel to be, and it made buku money, but it was a dreadful movie
I
to
yeah,
me.
I wasn't a huge fan. And look, the people who follow my channel, they know I don't attack people who like movies. I don't attack movies just for the sake of attacking movies. I wasn't a huge fan of Captain Marvel. Didn't really. I don't know. Again, this is not the statements of a critic. This is the statements of a fan, a comic book
Right.
fan. I saw that, and I did like for me, Brie Larson just didn't fit, and that's just my
Hmm.
humble opinion. Like she just didn't gel. It didn't work for me, so I was like, not my cup of tea.
Yeah.
But I understand there's people who loved it, and I can understand why they loved it. And this is where I'm confused with Rebel Moon. Is it the greatest movie I've ever seen? No. Can I understand why so many people did enjoy it? Yes, because I enjoyed it. I can also understand why people didn't like it, but I think, again, some of those critiques are misplaced. You're expecting a complete original storyline from a movie that was pitched as a Star Wars movie. Like, I don't know how I don't know how you get to that from
Hmm.
that. I don't know how, like, well, like, no, it's not going to be completely original. You're going to be able to tell this could have easily been a Star Wars movie because it was written as a Star Wars movie. So,
Right. This could have been a good, side Star Wars movie.
yep.
And then you'd have gotten some characters that you recognize too and stuff like that.
You could tell
So
Atticus was supposed to be Vader. You could tell right out the gate.
Vader or, one of those
Yeah,
generals,
right,
whoever it may be. But yeah, that makes sense too. But and I tried not to try to figure out, okay, who is it then,
right.
you know. So but yeah, I mean, trying to watch movies for me, I don't ever come from it or to them with maybe as much in-depth background stuff, especially in my Marvel. I'm more of a DC fan and characters of DC and some of those stories. And I understand then, of course, the adaptation because I've seen 3, 4 iterations of Superman plus things that I didn't pay attention to. Like I haven't yet seen Red Sun or read the comics, so I don't know that version. But there's something else out there, and
Right.
a fan of the character can go to that and enjoy that, even though it's completely turned on its head. I assume because it's totally different place.
Right.
But but the idea to come to a movie and say, okay, we've got this background, this story, and we're gonna stick to it, like I see some people do. It's like that's the way it's gonna be, or I hate the movie, and I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. So I come to
Right.
movies trying to just see the movie. I can put on somewhat a critic's brain and say, okay, I'm watching for shots and the story line to flow, things that have plot holes. And some people talk about plot holes where I don't even see plot holes, and stuff like that. But they normally just mention it without actually saying there's actually a plot hole and tell you what it is.
Right.
So, I don't know what to do with those kind of people. But yeah, it's weird to try to go to a movie and say, you got to do this, or I'm going to hate this movie completely.
Follow my demands or I will not
What?
like your movie.
Yeah, why would you do something like that?
Right.
But that same guy that liked Quantum Mania, Rebel Moon, he gave a half star to. It's so stupid you can't enjoy it, and despite what people say about Snyder, this movie does not look good. Cardboard sets everywhere. The rest is just slow mo fights, slow mo farming, slow mo walking, slow mo dot dot dot. It's like, okay, so he's hating Snyder's. My take from that, and you go down to his Army of the Dead, which is Snyder's movie. He gave it a 1 star. I don't know what movie the people here giving 5 stars saw. The action was limited to an opening montage. After that set in for an hour of boring setup that goes nowhere, characters acting stupidly all the time, plot twists that made no sense, music so on music so on the nose it might as well be a pimple. Zombie by the
Wow.
Cranberries. Poor Batista,
Wow.
he deserves a better movie. I read that line, music so on the nose. I was like, don't watch older movies
For
because
real. For
they
real.
made Vanilla Ice came into Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles too because he was popular.
On the nose. 100%.
Yeah, and the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtle Power. It's whoever sung that. These things just
Yeah.
flooding back to my mind. They made Ghostbusters has a theme song. Who you gonna call Ghostbusters? Like,
Yeah.
that was the 80s, 90s. I don't know about. I can't remember if it was like that in the 70s and stuff. But
Probably was.
I know ever since I've been watching movies when I was young, that's the way it's been. That's what you did. Somebody was hired to do it.
And things
Every
have
James Bond film has some song for the title sung by some popular artist.
yep. Yep. And they always got the most popular female actress at the time, or one of the most, and she
Hmm.
was the Bond girl. These were like just the tropes of the
It's
movie. You knew
it is
this is
still
what you were
going
gonna
on
get.
that
Yep.
way. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I kind of, so to put on a critic's hat, even though I don't really consider myself a critic, and I know some people take issue with that because they say, well, then you shouldn't talk about movies. Fans have always talked about movies. We just now have social
yeah,
media and the internet. So now you can talk about these movies on a bigger stage. The reason I don't consider myself a critic per se is because I haven't studied film or filmmaking. I don't know what goes into filmmaking. I don't know what goes into lighting a shot, how this shot is supposed to be done.
hmm
Where is the camera supposed to be placed? Where are you supposed to do this? How are you supposed to put a person's stance? Who's speaking? From what angle? I think a critic would be looking at all of these things, all the technical things that go into making a movie, along with is it enjoyable? As a fan, I'm just like, yo, I think the visuals was dope. I don't know if it was cardboard sets. Didn't look like it to me.
right.
And another thing, and this is not a cop out. This is legitimately how I went into the movie. This wasn't a theatrical release. I wasn't expecting the pomp of a theatrical release. I was expecting a really good streaming release. And that's what I got. I was like, yo, this was a good streaming release. Okay. I'm interested in
hmm
what happens in the next one. Man, it's like you saying something good about Rebel Moon right now is like you have the cooties. That's that like we're kids again. This is what this is akin to. It's like when you're 6 years old and your friends are like, "You like that girl? Oh, he likes that girl." It's like, okay, and what is the issue with that? I'm confused. You guys are
hmm
confusing me. I like a movie. Okay, this somehow puts some kind of mark on me. That's the thing about this that's wild. Like I'd heard about the hatred for Zack Snyder. Man, oh man, it is real. It is
Yeah.
real.
Well, let me give you this other one here. He reviewed also same guy, Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. He gave it a 1 star. Said as terrible as advertised. It's like that doesn't make a lot of sense. Special effects were nice, so I'm giving it 1 star. Nice. Plot was a disaster. Worst Lex Luthor in history. Batman looked better than expected in action, but there was no distinction between Batman and Bruce Wayne. And this was the most easily fooled best detective in the world. Batman ever, aka dumbest Batman ever written. Glad I saw it for free in flight. Like
I would
that's
argue,
just ridiculous. I think he's really just hating on every Snyder
right,
movie
right.
and trying worst Batman ever. It's like, come on, please.
Yeah, I put George Clooney in that category. To this
Yeah,
day, I
you can
don't
do
like
that.
George
Yep.
Clooney because of that. That just
He's
doesn't.
the first and only bobblehead Batman.
Oh my goodness! There's so many things about that George Clooney Batman movie just was not good, in my opinion. And look,
hmm
there's a lot of people.
I think there's stuff to enjoy about it. If you go to it
There
and just
is
say it's campy, it's almost like the '60s show.
true, very
Then you'd
true.
be like, okay, that's pretty funny. That's a little chuckle.
Right,
It's a real kids movie
it is.
at that point. And then you have some things you can enjoy from it. But then, of course, he showed up at the end of Flash. So is he actually going to be Bruce Wayne? Who
Who
knows?
knows? Yeah,
Of course, they're just going to abandon it all. That blows my mind. Every movie this year. Oh man,
it is bad. DC
bad,
is
bad,
bad.
bad.
Yeah,
And Aquaman
I haven't seen it.
was probably second. I would actually put Flash up there as the best this year.
Really,
This year.
above
And then
Aquaman
Aquaman.
was that bad?
Aquaman was you can see that it was
Yikes!
changed, truncated, and just like boom boom boom. Yeah, it's like make it 2 hours and just
Yikes!
do different things that.
Oh,
But when if you haven't seen it yet, just go watch it and see it. But it has some enjoyment to it. And I will say that in 3D it's better than 2D because it was made to be a 3D
3D
movie.
movie.
And so there's times that you see things that you're like, but it looks better in 3D.
Okay,
And it's underwater effects and stuff like that are kind
okay.
of, you know, um, you can just kind of tell, especially if you watch both of them.
But see,
And we've got a
I think
3D 4DX theater to move
okay,
you around and jump you around and stuff.
yeah,
So that was fun to watch it the second time,
okay,
even though it just has just an editing to it that's it should have been 3 hours probably,
okay,
and it should have been Mr. Wan. This is the last Aquaman movie. This is the last movie for the DCEU. We're getting rid of it all and only having what James Gunn wants, and we can talk about that later. And then there you go. You know, um,
is
they
James
should just let him have it and say, "Do whatever you want with it." Let me turn this light on. Just
is James Gunn was James Gunn a bad idea for DC?
terrible.
And I didn't think so.
And
So
I've said that from the very
you did,
beginning.
you did. I
So I was
remember
like,
we had our
"That's a bad idea. I
conversation.
don't know what
Yeah,
y'all are thinking. Don't do this. Never. I never would have thought they would have had that bad of an idea. I thought Zaslav had his brain in the right direction, and he should have been able to pick out from the people that he was working with the right people to go on,
yeah.
and those were the people involved with um, Black Adam, to tell you the truth, and then they should have gone on from there. And that's their best movie between.
You think Black Adam was the best one? Not even Shazam.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that
See,
original Shazam was
well,
good.
Shazam is good, but there's something about it that people just decided they didn't really care about it
Mm,
or something because it's not been big.
right.
The first one wasn't a big. The second one, I like both movies a
I haven't
lot,
seen the second
but
one. I
as
heard it's
far as
good.
successful,
I see
like
what you're saying. And if it's
not
not going to bring
successful.
them money, they're not going to keep dumping.
And they really, I mean, to me, they should have. With the first one, the problem that I think happened, they should have released that towards Christmas because it was a
Mm,
Christmas type of movie.
it
It should have
was.
been that.
It was. I didn't think about that. You're right. And
Mm,
it did. It definitely even had the Christmas feel to it.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
that would have done so much better, and it
you're
would
right.
that would be geared toward families. It's a great movie
Yeah.
as far as, and I just rewatched it the other day. I was like, wow, it just hits you emotionally in so
Much
many places. It's
Yeah, it
like,
was
wow.
much better than I thought. I remember because I traveled down. Ezekiel was still in college. I think yeah, he was still in college, and me and him went to see it when I traveled down to visit him. And me and him both walked out the theater like, "Yo, that movie was so much better than I thought it was gonna be. What happened?" So,
Hmm.
do you think maybe they should have? And here, the Snyder haters are gonna be mad at me just for even mentioning this. Do you think they should have kept the Snyderverse going and just let that whole deal flush out, or just move on from Snyder and go in another direction?
Right. So my position, since since we're on this, it's a Snyder movie, Rebel Moon. So what they should have done, and when people say this, or people or someone like me says this, people think, well, you just want Zack Snyder to like take over everything. That's not the case. But what they did with Black Adam, they were resetting the tone toward Snyder, which it never totally left. You
Mm.
know, every movie is in that vein. I even like Wonder Woman nineteen
Oh,
eighty
I
four.
did not like that
I like
movie.
it better than a lot of people. I watched it
Oh,
several times, and I guess I could see why people don't like it.
yeah, I didn't
But
like
then
it.
I think I know what they were going for, and of course they're going to me just briefly. They were going for a trilogy for her, and the first is love, and the second's about truth. If you go into that movie just saying it's all about truth, and you keep watching it for truth, 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 it then makes a lot more sense than it would
Mm.
if you're not paying attention to the theme
So
and just watching it.
maybe that's
And
what
I think a
happened.
lot
They
of
just
people
didn't.
didn't do that.
Yeah, they didn't. And I would say that falls on the studio. They didn't convey their idea
I
adequately.
thought they did because it starts out and that's exactly what she's talking about at the very beginning of the movie when she's
Yeah,
opening it
she
up, and it's
is.
just like,
Yeah.
and then the whole thing into the end when she's
Yeah.
got him lassoed is just it's about the truth,
I
and
guess.
some of it you need to think deeper than that too, deeper than what it's showing you. It's like, are you really thinking about the truth of how these things that are happening, that
Mm.
what you want and stuff, how is that really affecting beyond what you're thinking you want?
So could
And
it
I
be
don't think they showed that quite as well as they could have.
mm,
But so I get that, but I think if you give the movie what it was trying to do and watch it and try to pay attention to that theme, and then they're going to come out with a third movie, which whatever the third thing
right?
of hers is, you know, and like they should do a Superman thing like that with truth first and justice, and
Man,
then the American way is the third movie, and then
I am upset that Henry Cavill will not be Superman. Like I thoroughly
yeah,
enjoyed Man of Steel. Like I really enjoyed that movie. I enjoyed the movie because in my opinion, we've all seen, whether in cinema, cartoons, comic books, we've seen the Superman origin story. We all know it. So when I went into that movie, I was like, okay, here they go telling this origin story. But the way it was done, I was like, oh, okay, I am now intrigued. I like this. And Henry Cavill was such, but and you know
hmm
what? Again, casting the right person. He is such a geek, and he is such a lore geek that you can tell. Like, and I didn't realize how much of a geek Henry Cavill is. And I started watching some
hmm
interviews, and I'm like, oh, this dude, he's for real. Like, he is for
yeah,
real. And so that added a level of authenticity to him playing Superman. That was like, oh, he's really getting into this role. Like, this
right.
isn't just a role for him. That you can tell this is like a childhood dream. And for James Gunn, look, I heard his explanation for why he got rid of Henry Cavill. I don't think that was adequate. I don't think that was adequate, and I think that was a mistake. I think that was a huge
Yeah.
mistake.
Well, I think, like I said, first thing was no. I had no interest in seeing James Gunn run it, but I would have started to give him the benefit of the doubt if he had said. I mean, if he had just really, I don't know how he didn't see it. I don't know how, because he's active on social media. Cavill came out and said, "I'm back as Superman." Everybody loved it. They were going like, "This is amazing." Everybody was asking. There was interview after interview. It's like, "What's going to happen? What's going to happen? What's going to happen?" I can't really tell you. Stuff in the works. You're going to be pleased, and just everybody was always excited at every moment with that,
Mm-hmm.
as far as I can tell.
No, I agree.
And then, the way that I understand it now, he was already being looked at or talked to, I'm sure, before that time, but Zaslav hadn't hired him or something like that. So then he hires him, and then like the first thing he does is bring in Henry Cavill and say, "No, we're not going to do you. We're going to get rid of you." And his explanation was he's going with a young
Yep.
Superman, younger, and da 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 da, and all these this whatever a little bit. And then he came back and said, "Oh, no, I'm not really going with the young, just a little bit younger. It's just still about the same." And the guy's 30 years old. He's not
Right.
and he doesn't look much younger than Henry Cavill.
No, they actually. I did a
So
video about this. They actually look rather similar,
rather similar,
which I
but
was
not.
like, I was like, why did you even that? This doesn't make sense. I don't
Yeah,
understand.
I've heard it compared to like the Dollar General version of Henry Cavill.
Hilarious.
Because
Hilarious.
he looks similar, but then his nose is different
Right.
and not, as
He's not as built.
and he's
He's
not as
he's got
built. I
that.
think that
I think
his
he's tall. I
form
think he's taller
is
than Henry
slender
Cavill actually.
by like an inch or something
Right.
like that. But his form is slenderer, so
Very
he's
yeah.
not going to be able to bulk right the same way Henry Cavill did,
Right.
because Henry Cavill was already in shape
Big dude.
back with Immortals and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So he had already gotten in shape, and then he just put on the weight. So, but I don't see it. They may surprise me with his look and stuff, and I'll still give it a chance. But I have no. It's almost become like I don't care, because I saw what he started doing when he came in, and he changed the Flash. He made sure that
Man,
there's
that
different things in the Flash. The end of Shazam, you haven't seen it, but the end credit scene is all James Gunn. It's a different end credit scene. Cavill's supposed to be in the Flash and was supposed to be, I believe, in the Shazam
I believe so too.
um,
It was
sequel.
kind of
So
teased during the end of the original Shazam. So
and whatever happened then, and it's all studio stuff. It's like we don't want to pay him to come in and show us so they can give a headless Superman, but it's still Henry Cavill's Superman at that moment,
right,
and stuff. But and that part excited people too,
very much so.
even though it wasn't him.
Right, very much
But
so.
and I think that the critics of these kind of things, like when the Black Adam, he shows up and supposedly he's wearing the Man of Steel costume, not the Justice League costume, which people said, "Oh, he's got the Justice League costume, and they've got the John Williams theme, so therefore it's awful, terrible." Like, no, you. I think those were just loud, fake Snyder fanboys or something,
Right.
because I was over the moon about it, and I shared it. I recorded it in the theater and shared it on social media. Like, that's great. Snyderverse has been restored. There we go.
Right.
And like I said, everybody loved it. It was going that direction. And then James Gunn comes in and says, "Oh, you're gone." And he has a meeting with Ben Affleck. Ben Affleck, we want to work with you. This is the way that I heard it. We want to work with you. We want you to come in. He said, "Nah, I don't want to have anything to do with your universe." So Ben Affleck's out. They wanted him, but he
Goodness.
said, "No, I will not work with you the way you're going," because he listened to the story. Now, they're more diplomatic about it than I'm saying it, but that's the way that it was done.
Right.
And Zack Snyder's saying the same thing, and they're going back and forth. Well, Zack Snyder doesn't want to do anything with DC anymore. Oh, yeah, he does want to finish his own story, but
Right.
he won't work with James Gunn because the direction's wrong.
Right.
It's plain when you're really seeing it and read a little bit between the lines and the politics of everybody's friends in Hollywood kind of stuff,
Right.
And but yeah, they changed that. They cut him out of the Flash. In fact, I think when you're watching the Flash and Bruce Wayne's car's coming up,
Yeah.
I believe that's Henry Cavill running toward the car, and they kind of changed the shot around where it looks like it's somebody else in the next shot, but it's like that's not the same dude. I'm pretty sure if you watch it,
Uh
just a quarter second, I guess, where you can see him running like he's trying to get to the car, um,
man.
or toward the car, jogging, I should say. But who knows what the scene was? They should have released that. Warner Brothers would be wise, even though it's going to get them a lot of criticism. But they would be wise to release, behind the scenes and the deleted scene,
Right.
whatever Henry Cavill did for the several movies he was going to be in. The Aquaman was supposed to have Bruce Wayne, Ben Affleck in it, and they cut that out of the movie. So
Yikes.
it's just gone. Um, there's a lot of things that they, like I said, they changed that, and they should have just let James Wan do whatever he wanted to do and release whatever he wanted to do.
I,
I'm still waiting for David Ayer's cut to come out for Suicide Squad. Um, and that's an argument you get with people sitting there saying the Suicide Squad was better than Suicide Squad. I'm like, we watch different movies, guys,
And again,
especially looking at the numbers and stuff like that.
I think it has to do with different interests as well, right? Like you approach this being a huge fan of DC in general, right? So
Mhm.
you have backstory, lore, origins of characters, how these stories originally played out. I was never big into DC outside of Batman is my favorite hero out of comic books. But outside of that, DC wasn't really my universe. I was always a Marvel guy. Marvel and Image was always my the two content houses I love most. And so I think the angle by which you approach this would be different from somebody like me that I would say I would consider myself a DC normie. Outside of Batman, I'm a DC normie. I'm not if the story is not heavily attached to Batman, which I understand most DC stories in one way, shape, or form is attached to Batman. But if it's not heavily focused on Batman, really not interested. Don't know much about it. Just
Mhm.
because DC just never really appealed to me. And so that might be why the way you judge those movies and the way you see those movies is way different than like how I would see some of these movies. Because there's some of the like Black Adam. I thought it was good, but I wasn't really like, oh yeah, I like this. I see which direction they're going. I didn't see all of that,
Mhm.
but I
Well,
wouldn't have seen
I
all of
would
that.
agree with you. It's like it's good. I think what I'm saying is, as far as the direction is going, is the well, just behind the scenes with The Rock saying, "Listen to the fans; they'll tell you which direction to go."
Man,
It was like he was right,
it's 100.
and
percent
bringing in Henry Cavill to the end of that was one of the greatest highlights of the movie. It's like that's what's coming. That's what I want to see,
Yes.
and but yeah, that's where it goes to falling apart. It's like James Gunn is rebooting the whole universe. But he really only got rid of Henry Cavill. And then Ben Affleck said, I'm not coming back. You're going in the wrong direction. And then changing these other movies the way that they were changed. I'm trying to remember what came out first in this year. Was it? It might have been Shazam came
It,
out
it
first.
was I think Black Adam, then Shazam, then
That
Flash.
was last year though. Black Adam came out like November, October last year. I
Of
forget when
2022.
exactly. Hmm. Yeah,
Really?
yeah. Back last year, 2022.
Yes, all
We're in
right.
2024.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I guess let me look that up. I
Yeah,
don't.
because then it was supposed to do something, and oh man, if they'd have released it in China, people wouldn't be arguing about the box office for that. That thing would have exploded.
Yeah, wasn't it?
But
What was the reason they didn't release it in China? Yeah, it was
I
2022.
don't
You're
think
right.
they even gave a good reason.
Yeah,
They,
2022. So dang, I
I,
forgot.
they may have, they may have said, um, maybe Brosnan or something like that was not appealing in there. I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't get it. It didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, that
So,
doesn't make sense at all.
um, but I'm not saying that it was like a wow, knock your socks off movie throughout, but it was fun and it had the Shazam feel to
Yeah,
it because it
yeah,
had some very similar characteristics, obviously,
right.
and and certainly should have been going in that direction.
I see what
Um,
you're saying. I see what you're saying. So it wasn't
yeah,
necessarily that the movie's like the greatest thing ever, but the direction it was going in was like, okay, this might be an
hmm
actual good direction. Let's see how this plays
yeah,
out.
it had certain things that it was introducing. I was like, okay, I'm gonna be more interested in that. I want to actually see the Justice Society of America and why in the world are they interacting with Waller in this way that
Right.
they're doing. You know,
Do you
it to me, Waller is a bad guy, obviously
right.
from the first Suicide Squad, but they've kind of toned that down, I guess. And
Do you
but
think
anyway,
do you think there is a concerted effort to hate certain movies just for the sake of hating the movie?
I, it out it it does exist, but it's weird that it can catch that this much traction. That kind of thing. That amazes me. Going back to like Batman versus Superman, it became it came out. People liked it, enjoyed it. I was already aware there was a director's cut, so I was watching it, looking for certain things. I was like, okay, I see where that was this, and
Certain things were cut
stuff
out.
that
Yeah.
then you see in the director's cut, and you're like, yes. And people either don't watch the Ultimate Edition, or they just don't pay attention to it because they still make the same complaints sometimes.
Mm,
But that movie came out and it was heavily criticized by certain critics. And then the Ultimate Edition came out and they said they absolutely love the movie now because the Ultimate Edition. So it was an absolute flip on the critics and all the bad criticisms of fans. And they probably took to the same things. Like they followed their favorite critics' opinion at that point.
so I
But yeah, I
wonder.
don't. It's weird that it gets that kind of traction because it was enjoyable and it was fun. It was really what it was supposed to be. If you're trying to make it into Civil War, why? That's just
Right. Not
the
gonna be able
actual
to do
movie.
that.
So
And
don't do that. But yeah, but then people started hating on it because of things they heard said
mm,
by somebody else. Like, yeah, I hate Lex Luthor. Oh man, every time I watch the thing, people criticize him for two things: the opening scene that he's in, where I guess he's like, it's Google.com workstation area,
right.
and he's flippant and whatever, and then he kind of giggles a certain way or something when he's talking with the senator in
Mm,
his dad's room or something like that. Um, and they criticize him for that, but the rest of it's like, whoa! If you're actually watching, he is that character. He is sinister. He is
right.
conniving. He is thoughtful and all this. And I guess the introduction is between Bruce and um, uh, Clark is playful, and the critics don't like that. It's like, what is he doing? Why does he have hair? Like, y'all
Yeah.
don't read the comics. You don't know anything about this story, do you? Um, but anyway, yeah, like Gene Hackman is famous for he would not go bald. Now he had a bald cap on,
Right.
obviously, in a couple different scenes, but he not like Michael Rosenbaum. He said, "No, just take it off."
Yeah. For real.
um,
But
but yeah,
I
so
wonder. I wonder
bald.
if certain things have happened. I wonder if if people's attention spans have been somewhat damaged by social media. And the reason I bring
Mhm.
that up is when you here's my problem with some of the critiques of Rebel Moon. Not that look, fair game to critique. It definitely warrants critique. I think people aren't willing to be patient with movies that they know. Like if Rebel Moon came out and I had no idea that a second and or third movie was in the works, then I'd have been like, all right, there's a lot of things that need to be fixed because I don't understand what's
Yeah.
going on here. But because I know there's more coming, I'm like, oh, they left something to some guesswork. So this is where patience comes in. This is a story in long form.
hmm
And I think when I see some of the critiques, I'm like, well, is he not allowed to wait to the second movie to reveal this thing that you want revealed? Like, is that not allowed? Is the problem with that? And I don't know. It could be me being
Yeah.
biased because I was given more leeway because I know a second movie is coming out. Maybe that's the case. Maybe again, like I said, maybe I'm not suited to be a critic. I'm just a fan commenting on movies.
hmm Yeah. we do live in a different era, and it's both. It's worked. It can work for this movie and against it, either way. But I do think that a lot of people's minds are greatly damaged by social media, um, or just this culture that we're in, where it's short, quick.
Mm.
I don't think that it started with social media even. I think it's maybe started with the news networks and just got to get a headline out there. And Superman 4 was kind of a commentary on that because, the rich guy bought the newspaper and said, nobody reads the story, they just read the headlines. They just write the headlines and that's it.
Yeah, that's a
Um,
commentary on society right now.
yeah, we want a blurb. In fact, most of these things are only like 3, 4, 5 lines. Nobody really puts a lot of thought into too many of these reviews. Um, but that may be part of it for a number of people, just short attention spans. But then I think for a long time we've had basically short attention spans, and you have to
Fair.
train yourself to do better than that. Um, so it can still be done, but our society does kind of cater to that now, more than it
Yeah, and
more than it did before.
I think people were looking for a, like, when I looked at the reviews, I was like, people are looking for a quick judge. And the reason I say that is when I listen to a lot of reviews, it's like, all right, this movie's trash. Let me tell you why it's trash. And I'm like, I guess I approach it from the same angle, different side of the coin. Like, I enjoyed the movie. I thought it had some redeeming qualities. I thought it was a decent movie. Wasn't the greatest movie I've ever seen. Wasn't the greatest sci-fi movie I've ever seen. Cinematically, I thought it was pleasing from the opening scene to the closing scene, personally. I know a lot of
Hmm.
people said, oh, they didn't spend enough time on this world or on that world, or all of the worlds look the same. And I'm like, I wouldn't say all the worlds look the same in Star Wars, because they don't all look the same. But there are worlds in Star Wars that look very similar. A lot of them. Very
Hmm.
similar with some different structures. Now, that's not necessarily to compare this Rebel Moon with Star Wars, because I don't think it's really a direct comparison. I think you can go into this movie knowing it was pitched as a Star Wars movie, but now it's its own thing. So let me watch it as its own thing, understanding this was pitched as a Star, and that's how I watched it. And so when I read the reviews, like I said, I'm just like, yo, did I watch a different movie? Like, I must have saw a different movie,
Right.
because
Well, to think of it that way, if you go back to Star Wars, I'm trying to think. There's now I've done forgot the name of the planet, but Luke's planet, right? Or
Tatooine.
Anakin, you're right, Tatooine. There's that planet, and there's space. And you're on, the ships, but you're on a few different kinds of ships. But what other planet is there? There's a military base where they're getting
Hoth.
ready to go off. Now Hoth is in the next movie though.
True. Very true.
So just in the first movie, I just can't think
I gotta go back to
past.
that
There's just
movie.
one.
Yeah, I can't remember
Yeah.
offhand.
Now there's certainly different scenery. There's at least the planet, and then there's just space is the two first things you're seeing, and the rebel ship. Then you see the Empire ship, much bigger, more expansive, so you can see the difference between them. Um, and of course, now again, trying to get my Star Wars in order though. She's not supposed to be a rebel, so Leia in the first ship is just um a ship, but not part of the Empire per se. It's part of the
Right.
Republic, and then there's a military base, and there's of course Han Solo's uh, ship, and there's the bar scene, the
Katina.
cantina
Yeah.
scene, um, and so That's just different scenes. It's a similar thing with this, except there's probably
That's
more worlds in Rebel Moon because
and
they have to go to more places.
that's why I say I think Rebel Moon became a victim of the nostalgia trap. I
Hmm.
think people's nostalgia over Star Wars maybe slightly colors what they think about movies because in their mind Star Wars came out, was heralded, loved by everyone. And I think Star Wars, the original Star Wars, did receive critical acclaim. I believe so. But that was, and I could be mistaken about this. I need to look into this some more. I said that before. I really do need to. I think some of that critical acclaim really was more based around the special effects than anything because
Hmm.
the way Lucas did those special effects to this day, if I watch the original Star Wars movies, I am still impressed.
Oh
It's
yeah.
2024 and I can watch those movies and still go, wow, this is, especially for the time, what they did with what they had is impressive. It is
Hmm.
wildly impressive.
Yeah, and I've got the 3 movies on the DVD release where they still gave you the original film and then the
And
special
enhance.
editions,
Yeah.
and they've changed it like 3 or 4 times since then. But I did kind of look that up, and I think it's kind of like mixed reviews stuff, like not universally beloved. Some of them didn't like it. Um, it's one thing I saw said it's not really sci-fi, which we kind of know it's really a fantasy.
Space Western.
Yeah,
That's really
space
what it is. It's a
western
space
stuff
Western.
like that. Yeah. So yeah, it probably just depended on the critic and what their tastes were more than
Right.
anything else. But there is an Entertainment Weekly article about it that pulls up the New Yorker, Pauline Kael, Roger Eberts, Vincent
Oh, I
Canby,
forgot about
John Simon,
Roger and Ebert. Wow.
and Gene Siskel. Star Wars is Gene Siskel. Star Wars is not a great movie in that it describes the human condition. It simply is a fun picture that will appeal to those who enjoy Buck Rogers style adventures. What places it a sizable cut about the routine, maybe above the routine, is a spectacular visual effects,
Special
the
effects.
best since
That's
Stanley Kubrick's
and
2001.
I think that's why it got critical acclaim. It was the special effects, not necessarily the
Mhm.
acting or the plot.
All right, and Roger Ebert's his counterpart there. Star Wars is a fairy tale, a fantasy, a legend, finding its roots in some of our most popular fictions. The golden robot, lion-faced space pilot. I'm not sure what that's referring to, but
So it's saying it got
insecure
inspiration from other
computer on
movies.
wheels. Oh yeah, yeah. Let's see here. Yeah, the golden robot, lion-faced space pilot. I guess it's meaning Chewbacca there with that though.
Okay.
Insecure little computer on wheels must have uh, been suggested by the Tin Man, the Cowardly Lion, and the Scarecrow.
Yeah. Okay.
Hardware is from Flash Gordon out of 2001: A Space Odyssey. The Chivalry is from Robin Hood. And this is the kind of review. It's like he's not actually telling you it's good or bad. He's kind of
Just honest critiques.
just giving you some information,
Right.
and you can decide from there. And that really is the thing. Like you go to these things and say this is a stupid movie or something like that. 1 star, it's terrible. Um, whatever. And then somebody else is like 5 stars. I liked it because I like 300 or something like that. Same idea. Like I said, it's not really saying anything about the movie necessarily.
I think let me see
That's
if
your
I can
taste, you know.
let me see if I can
And
pull up my review. I'll read my review I wrote on this. I said, I believe everyone has become so super critical that the ability to simply enjoy a well done movie is almost lost. This movie was visually pleasing from the opening scene to the closing. I've heard that the pacing was either too slow or too fast. I, on the other hand, didn't have an issue because, as I stated, I watched for enjoyment, not as a critic. The acting and character development was exactly what was to be expected from a movie building a new universe and franchise. If you go into this movie to enjoy a good movie, you will be pleased. With any movie, even your favorite movie, if you go in with the idea to pick apart anything you don't like, then no movie will ever meet your standards. This was written by a fan of cinema, not a critic. And I think that was my takeaway. Like, pacing was good, like the character development, acting was good. What I expected from a movie building a new franchise, I wasn't blown away. And the reason I wasn't blown away, this is just my humble opinion, is not necessarily because the movie wasn't good. It's because, these are characters I'm just not really familiar with. And I
Mm-hmm.
think this is my assumption. I could be wrong. Here's my possible prediction. And I said this on another video about this. I think people will watch the second movie and quite possibly enjoy it so much that they go back to the first movie with fresh eyes, considering, oh, okay, maybe I judged this too harshly because there
Mm-hmm.
was things I was expecting to be sewed up. Because look, I'm gonna use comic books and a recent comic book universe as an example of what I'm talking about. Ripperverse, y'all have heard me talk about it on my channel. I like Eric July's comic books. I believe they're good. The critiques he got for his first book, I Sum Number One, is, oh, you didn't explain this, you didn't explain that. Like, you're building a new universe. You're not going to explain every single thing in the first book. You're going to
Mm-hmm.
leave some things to the imagination and fan theory because this is what builds fan culture. You're going to explain some more things in the second book, which he did, still leaving some things left to the imagination to build more fan theory and fan culture. Explain some more things in the third book without giving you everything because he's building a universe.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I guarantee if you go back and read some of Marvel's original books, you'll be like, why didn't they explain this? Why didn't they explain that? Why didn't they explain it? Because they're building a universe. They're not going to
Mm-hmm.
give you everything right out the gate. And that's where I think that attention span problem kind of comes in. Like, guys, be a little patient. You don't have to say the movie's great. You don't have to sing its praises like it's the greatest thing you ever saw. But I don't know. You could easily believe this movie is really trash. I think there are people who legitimately just did not enjoy it. But I think there's some people that weren't being genuine in their critiques. And that's just my humble opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I saw some people coming to it thinking it's all everything in Hollywood's woke trash now, so therefore it's going to be woke trash, and they were critiquing that Sophia Botella was a 90-pound woman throwing around a 200-pound man,
It's sci-fi.
and I was like, wait a minute, that didn't actually happen the way that other people are doing it. She was shooting them, and actually she got hit a couple of times, you know, but
And it's sci-fi.
yeah,
It's
sci-fi and fantasy,
like,
and
this
that's
is
going to
not
be
real.
that's obviously the main character.
Right.
But
How many women throwing a lasso, flying?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like that's not happening, but
Like,
it's
there's
sci-fi.
no reason. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like it was some weird reasons to hate on the movie and stuff like that. But um, like I said, I mean, I do see where people are just like it's a love it or hate it kind of thing. There's still some people in the middle, and there's still some people that are like, I enjoyed this movie quite a bit, even though I think it has something it's building toward, and
Right.
it's left out a lot. I'm looking forward to the director's cut because I want to see
Right. What they felt
the
was
fleshed
missing.
out version and
Right.
stuff like that. Yeah. And yeah, while you were talking about how they're building the universe, I'm remembering reading comic books, and they would say something. There'd be a little asterisk, and it says "See Action Comics number whatever."
Right.
It's like, oh, you got to go figure that story out from over there.
Right.
I fought somebody, and it's like, okay. Or see, there's in a Superman series. Go see Superman number 2 so that you can understand what this reference is.
Right.
That and you can't. It would be funny, I guess, if they did do this. Stop the movie and say, "Now you'll see another movie come out about that later." No,
Yeah.
let's go back to the story.
Back to your regularly scheduled program. People would be like,
Yeah.
wait, what?
Go to
What?
Wikipedia. We have a Wikipedia page. Zach
Right.
has built it. He's told the whole backstory.
Right. And in
Fleshed out all the
right.
worlds.
And in essence, that's implied. It is implied that, hey,
Exactly.
you're not going to get everything, sewed up here. He said, I mean,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken, even before this movie was released, they had announced there's going to be comic books, spin-offs that he's already working on, right? So that kind of led me to believe, okay, so everything is not going to be explained in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to have
And when do you
material.
ever come to a movie expecting everything to
No.
be explained?
No, and that's what I don't understand that. I'm like, guys, I'm trying to like.
So that to me is like an illegitimate criticism. Why didn't you explain this? Duh. I mean, no movie can you expect for everything to be explained to you.
No.
It's just, and if you did, they would criticize it for being like too expositional,
Right.
or something like
You
that. Like,
explained
well,
everything.
you
Yeah.
can't win either way.
You cannot. You cannot. And I brought that up in one of my videos. I was like, I've heard people the same movie complain,
The same critics
that
too.
the pacing was too fast, and then I've heard some people say the pacing was too slow, and I'm like, which one is it?
Mhm.
Which one is it? Too fast or too slow? Like you can't. It's almost like, look, I'm not a creator, right? I don't create movies. I enjoy movies. So the way I look at a movie, like I can understand the concept of pacing, and I can understand, yo, man, this movie is kind of slow. But maybe the director wanted it to be slow. Like what if I legitimately wrote a screenplay, and I wanted it to play out slow because I wanted to build up anticipation for what's coming next. And then it's too slow. Well, yeah, that's kind of that was kind of the point, because I want you to kind of go to this other movie. And then what if I moved it along too fast? And what if the reasoning was, well, I want one cohesive story. I don't want a second movie. So I moved this along quick so you could digest it all in one movie. Oh, it was too fast. It's like, yo, man, you can't win. You can't
win. There's no way. There's been too many movies that were made to have a sequel, and then they were like, well, no, you didn't make enough money, so we're not going to do any future movies. And then we're just like lost. We're like, the people that actually go back to it or enjoy that movie is like, now I don't have a sequel.
That has
And there's
happened
too many
more
sequels
times.
that have been made just because one movie that was a standalone story, all about good by itself,
Yep.
made a bunch of money. It's like, oh, let's have a sequel to
Fast
this.
and Furious.
That's a terrible sequel.
Fast and
Now,
Furious.
Fast and Furious has become some weird beast
I am so sick. I was sick of Fast and Furious after one. I'm gonna be honest with you. And some of those movies are good. I'm not saying they're not good. I'm just like, yo, man, this was a standalone movie that should have stayed a standalone movie. That's what it should have been. Now, what are they in space now? I heard they were in space. I haven't watched the last like 2 or 3.
They launched one car into space.
Oh my goodness, I'm just so done with Fast and Furious. I'm just so done. Next thing they're gonna go light speed.
It's crazy stuff, but it's a fun ride as it is. Now 10 actually goes back several movies and does a new backstory. So if you watch that one and then go back and watch the others going through it and say, okay, so all this stuff is going on in between, and hopefully the next one, which is supposed to be part 2, fulfills, what I hope is going to be in it. And I could see all the movies like coming together at that point and saying, okay, it makes a really cohesive thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they're kind of rewriting it to make it do that. So, I mean, they've got to really work on it to do that. But it's dumb fun more than anything else. And it's about cars.
I recognize that. Yeah. I recognize that.
Yeah.
The
and
movie
other
is
things.
enjoyable.
Yeah.
They're enjoyable movies. I would not, as much as I am not necessarily a fan of the movies are enjoyable. Another thing, the nuance in movie enjoyment is another thing that's just about loss. Like
Hmm.
I can acknowledge certain movies are not my cup of tea yet enjoyable. Like yo, not necessarily a fan, definitely enjoyable though. I know why people like this movie. And
Hmm.
I'd like I'll be honest with you. I think, have you seen Godzilla -1?
Hmm.
That is a marvelous movie in my humble opinion. And there's people who would disagree with me. I think that movie is a masterpiece in movie making, just in my humble opinion. The special
Hmm.
effects weren't over the top per se. They weren't like the most groundbreaking. A lot of it was like a dude in an actual suit. And I actually liked it. I was like, yo, I think I like this better than a bunch of CGI. I think I actually enjoy
Yeah.
this. I
It was quite low budget, so they had
very
to
low
do
budget.
what they did. So,
And it was
but
enjoyable. That was such an enjoyable
yeah, I don't
movie.
think you could do that in Hollywood. I don't think you could make that movie
No, I don't think you could.
because they would um I don't know how to say it right. It's just
That that
they
movie,
couldn't do it.
that movie literally without even knowing the plot, without even seeing really one full preview, made me not want to go see Godzilla X Kong. I just don't want to.
Right.
After seeing Godzilla -1, I'm like, nah, no, thank you. I don't want what. Nah, you gave
Mhm.
me this other thing that I'm not interested in.
Yeah. And I think with the Godzilla and Kong and that whole universe right now, you've got to actually make yourself invested in it
Yeah,
because Godzilla is slow. It is slow, and the good thing about it really, it was starting out right. They you cared about Bryan Cranston and his character. Then they switched it up and said you've got to care about the son and his wife.
right,
Like, no, I don't. Not really.
right.
And I never bought into that one. So I mean that threw me off, and it just becomes this thing. They should have stuck with Bryan Cranston and then
It be-
followed through with it that way.
yeah,
Um,
it became
and then
another
of course
animal.
Monarch.
Monarch
Right,
is
it
good.
changed that.
Monarch is good. I've been watching Monarch and I've actually
The
enjoyed it.
series I haven't been able to get that because I need to get Apple.
Yeah,
Um, and
even
I want to just for that, just to see what that is.
now. I will tell you this. I will tell you, if you do not have Apple TV Plus, I'm gonna tell you, Apple might be single handedly putting out the best sci-fi in television.
Okay.
Like Apple's sci-fi shows, Foundation is magnificent.
Oh yeah.
When I tell you that show is incredible. Silo, oh my goodness, I am super intrigued. Super intrigued. Invasion, out of here, man. For All Mankind, look, man, Apple TV Plus secretly has some sleeper hits like
Yeah.
shows that you will watch and go, okay, okay, I am intrigued.
Well, I'm probably gonna have to get a subscription for that
Yeah,
then.
Apple TV Plus is worth it. Their
Yeah.
sci-fi shows, I look, because I think if I'm not mistaken, Foundation and Silo are both movies based on. I always,
Foundation's Asimov.
yeah, Isaac Asimov. I think both of those are based on Isaac Asimov novels, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
And it is, man, like I'm watching these shows and I'm like, this is the type of stuff that's been missing in sci-fi. Foundation, I'm gonna say
Hmm.
especially, is something that has been missing in sci-fi, like a sci-fi story that actually makes you care about the characters. Like I think too many shows are sci-fi just for the sake of CGI, space travel, and all of the tech stuff that we geeks love. But it's like, yeah, but I don't care about these characters though. Like they just don't
Okay.
matter. With Apple TV Plus, no, it is. What's the best way to explain it? it is a sci-fi show wrapped around a drama perfectly.
Okay.
And they are very intriguing shows. For All Mankind, I still like, so I gotta finish the second to last season, and the season they have going now, I'm letting it play out before I watch it. Because there are some themes in these shows that I don't particularly care for. There is some agenda. I'm not gonna, pull no punches. They got some agendas in the show, but
Mm-hmm.
Apple has figured out a way to, we're going to mention our little things, but we're not going to make the show about that. And it's
Right.
like, okay, I don't necessarily like this part of it, but the show is not about this, so I'll just skip past that and move on to what I want
Yeah,
to
I
see.
think most of the older shows, even like if I look back to, well, the first one that comes to mind is like Quantum Leap, and I like Quantum Leap.
I loved Quantum Leap. I loved Quantum
And
Leap.
but that has a lot of agenda to
Agenda.
it.
I think a lot of
It's just got
shows
a
did.
bunch of stories that are just like that. But
Yeah.
yeah, they did. And
Yeah.
you go back to like the Incredible Hulk, and it's telling the story of whatever's going on at the time,
Right.
and putting certain spins to it. And it's like,
Right.
but I enjoy him hulking out. I don't really care too much about some of the stuff that's off in the side.
Right.
But then a lot of the time the story is important. Something like
Exactly.
I'm trying to think what was well, one of the things just people disabled, loss of limbs or whatever, or different things. I remember
Yeah.
in the Bill Bixby thing. Um, oh, it was Highway to Heaven was the other one. Highway to Heaven is telling certain aspects of things
Right.
from a particular point of view, but it's important. I guess talking about camp and then how people are going to camp with cancer or something like that, and just stuff to raise awareness
Right.
for these things actually going on in the world. And that's the way that it was done
Yeah.
all the time.
You're always, I always say, whatever it is you hold near and dear to your heart. If I create something, if I create anything,
Mm-hmm.
like let's say if I created something sci-fi, I'm not going to beat you over the head with the Bible, but you best believe it's going to be in there somewhere. You're going to
Mm-hmm.
find it. It's not going to be absent, because that is the most important part of my life, is the Lord Jesus
Mm-hmm.
Christ and his word. So obviously that's going to bleed into whatever it is I create. Now, I
Right.
can create something that's not necessarily, I can create a sci-fi film that's not necessarily about that, but it's not going to be absent. So when I watch something, I'm not mad when there's certain things that show up. I'm like, oh, okay, this is what you're about. Now, if you tell me this is a sci-fi story and you make it about some tertiary issue that has nothing to do with sci-fi, now I'm going to get mad. You just
Mm-hmm.
brought me in here to push an agenda. Your agenda didn't necessarily bother me. You just created this whole movie to shove your agenda down my throat, not to give me
Right.
something
Stuff that's
entertaining.
blatantly
Right.
like political, things like that. It's
Right.
like you did this just to or like that movie, Look Up. Is supposedly some kind of super popular movie. I think people just watch it to cringe or whatever. It's a dreadful politically based
Yeah, I didn't
movie.
watch it.
We're all gonna die. It's like, well, why do you need to look up for this theory? Because you're about to die from an asteroid in a few weeks. Who
Right.
cares at that point?
Right.
But what is yes? But it was blatantly political. There, yeah, you know what they were trying to push.
Yeah, it's like this is
It's
just an
like,
agenda. It's
what
not a
is
story.
wrong with y'all?
Right.
So I laugh. I watch it and laugh at the other parts.
Give
I
me
think
a
I'm going to do that with Civil War. Have you heard about Civil
Oh,
War
yeah, I have
coming
heard
out?
about that movie. I have
I
heard
think
about
I'm
that
going to
movie.
be in there and I'm going to be just cracking up and laughing at the screen at all the wrong wrong
Speaking of which,
parts.
did you watch Leave the World Behind?
I've not yet.
So
I heard that it was Barack Obama
he
produced.
well, I
or
don't know
something
if
like that.
I think I don't know in what capacity him and Michelle Obama did, but I don't know in what capacity. I think
Okay.
my guess is I don't want to give away the plot since you haven't seen it, but my guess is because of the nature of the plot, their advice in certain areas was like super important to making it as accurate as possible. And I think that was the
Okay.
capacity of their producer. But I could be mistaken about that. Needless to say, the movie wasn't terrible. Like, again, another one of those movies I'm not going to tell you, yo, Ground, you got to go see this movie. Nah, definitely an agenda in it. Definitely an agenda. But the
Hmm.
plot wasn't trash. Like I didn't sit there like, oh, this is just complete trash. I was like, oh, I see it. I get it. I get your agenda. I get what you're trying to push. But
Hmm.
there's some things in here that's kind of funny, right? Like there's a little girl character in it that's, I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of hilarious. Just
Yeah.
her attitude. Her attitude made certain situations like I giggled just watching how she reacted to certain things. Like this is actually funny. But yeah, there
Okay.
was things in that movie that was definitely agenda driven, without a doubt. Like I'm not even gonna pull no punches. It was like the agenda was definitely in your face. That didn't necessarily make it a bad movie. And I think, again, I think this is one of those areas where it's like people are prone to notice the agenda and go, oh, agenda automatically is bad. And I'm like,
Right.
like, yes, I don't like the fact that this agenda is pushed. Objectively speaking, that in and of itself doesn't make the movie bad.
Hmm. Right, and that's again that's where it's a matter sometimes of taste, and really you just shouldn't be like, I absolutely hate the movie because of the agenda, so nobody should go watch it. No, it should be like, my taste is this is I don't like the agenda being pushed, so I don't watch it. I guess I could be really generous with the She-Hulk series and
I
say
didn't
that the
watch it.
agenda, I don't
I've never
know.
been interested in
But
She-Hulk, and
no, I
that's why I didn't
watched the
watch it.
whole thing, and I read some of the John Byrne comics
I
when
didn't.
he was doing it,
Yeah.
and I was like, and she breaks the fourth wall and stuff, like, and I was like, okay, so when I watched it, you notice it right away, and you throughout because it's like in your face, and there's some dreadful scenes in it, which you probably seen
Yeah.
because you watch any reviews.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of very terrible stuff. But if you take the whole series and take the good stuff from them, you might come up with an hour and a half decent movie,
Hmm.
She-Hulk movie.
Okay.
And you can probably splice it together that way and fix a plot and throw some extra little scenes in there and get something in there. But yeah, it's just it ruins the series for me. But
Hmm.
I watched the whole series to just see those little bits and pieces. And I don't really know what they're trying to do going forward. My Carson says he has some idea of some of what they're doing.
Yeah.
Um, with whatever Hulk, a group of Hulks and stuff.
Hmm.
And I heard somebody is going to be anyway, whoever, whatever. But that would be interesting, and I would love to see myself. I'd love to see a Hulk movie. I like both Hulk movies, the Hulk and then the Incredible Hulk,
Yeah.
for what they are.
Yeah. I didn't think they were great. I didn't dislike them or
Mhm.
like them, if that made sense. Like
Yeah,
I
I like
saw
them
them
better
and I was like,
probably because
mm,
I'm a Bill Bixby Hulk series big fan.
right.
So I really like the Incredible Hulk, Ang Lee's Hulk. It's lower than that, but it still has some of those kind of moments
Right.
and stuff.
Some redeeming qualities, things about it
Yeah,
that
and it
pull you in.
tells a certain kind of story to it that I'm like, okay, I understand that, and I think they overdid some of it with the father and in his involvement, but they were trying to do something
Right.
beyond just like the military shooting at the Hulk, I guess. So,
So I've been reading the Immortal Hulk series,
mhm.
and that series is very good. It is
Yeah.
very good. Yes, art, story, everything. I'm like, man, this was probably one of the best. That and War of the Realms is my favorite Marvel stories of the past 15 years.
Okay.
So yeah, pretty good though. I've never really been a huge fan of Hulk, just in general,
Right.
but Immortal
And I
Hulk,
only read a few. Like I'm more. I guess because I'm a John Byrne fan, just because he restarted Superman, so I paid attention to some other things. So he did a
right?
little bit in Hulk, and I read a few of those stories. And um, my older brother, is much more involved with the comic books than I ever was,
Okay.
especially Spider-Man for sure, and then the Hulk. He knows a lot more about that. But but yeah, I mean, I'm more like I watched it on the TV show, so um, I, I understand that, and so I see in the Incredible Hulk that threw back to the TV show.
Right.
Um, and I'm not saying it's a great movie, but it's a lot better than some people say it is to me. And it tells what story it's telling, and I think the the make of the Hulk, I think a few things should have been adjusted, but they changed it quite drastically when it became Mark Ruffalo.
Mm,
And even that, the first one and second time he was in something was okay and fine and even good in a lot of parts, but then it became what I despise.
mm.
I I don't like it. I just don't like what it turned into, and don't like what it is in the She-Hulk series. If you ever watch that, then maybe
I, pro-
you'd agree. I don't know,
I probably won't.
but
I like Mark Ruffalo's Hulk. I liked it. I liked it
I
more.
liked it at the beginning,
I don't
and then it
like Professor Hulk.
turned to something else.
Believe it
Exactly,
or
that's what
not.
I'm
Yeah,
saying.
I
I don't like the Professor Hulk.
I like the raging maniac Hulk. Honestly, I like the out of control, barely controlled Hulk that you're just like, is he gonna
Mm.
kill us or the other guys? Like, I don't know which one of those he's gonna. That's the Hulk I like.
Right, so
I didn't
that's the
like.
Incredible Hulk.
Yeah, I didn't like when they neutered him with Thanos. I did not like
Yes,
that. I was like,
that didn't. That
I
I was
was like,
watching the screen and said, "What?"
I don't like this.
Out loud in the theater.
Yeah,
What?
I did not like that. I was like, you could have done a lot of things with the Hulk. You could have come up with a lot of creative ways to introduce Professor Hulk. That wasn't it.
Hmm.
For me personally, I was just like,
Yeah,
yeah, not a fan of that. Not a fan of that. I didn't like the way that
yeah.
went. I
And a
didn't
lot of the fans wanted to see Planet Hulk, so the closest they got to it was Thor Ragnarok.
man, let me tell you. Like the thing that I think Marvel and DC have a bad habit of doing. You remember, was it Batman? I think it's Batman versus Superman, where they hinted at the comic book Flashpoint. Like they kind of hinted at it a little bit when Bruce Wayne was in a Batcave and he got that vision of the Flash.
Hmm.
Like they were hinting at, oh, I was like, Flashpoint, oh snap. But kind of how they did in the Flash, I was like, okay, I see it, but I feel like you were headed in a different and better direction at the end of
Hmm.
Batman versus Superman. And I feel like
Yep,
what we got
I
in the
agree.
Flash was a super muted and changed version of what we were going to get. And that,
Yep, that's my criticism
yeah,
of it.
I think Marvel does the same exact thing. Like they tease at something, like they make you think, so, okay, I can go with, instead of the Illuminati sending Incredible Hulk out into space, him deciding to go out into space. Okay, I can go with that. But then to give
Yeah,
me,
you get to bypass a big "where did they come from" storyline,
yeah, yeah,
and that's okay if you don't have a plan for it that's good.
right,
So say, okay, we're gonna skip that, and
right.
but
Just
even that.
Yeah.
That's not Planet Hulk, as far as I know.
No, that wasn't Planet Hulk.
But I'm not a
No.
big
No,
yeah. So,
that wasn't Planet Hulk. That wasn't like that. It was just
but their hands are tied, or at least they were, because Universal had the rights to distribution, and they're like, we're not releasing the movie. So Universal, you just
for Hulk. You talking about for Hulk?
yeah, because they
Okay.
did the first one, so
Yeah.
they had rights to release, and so
But see,
Marvel,
so
Disney, whatever is petty.
what they could have done is they could have done a World War Hulk within the confines of the Avengers. So it's not a Hulk movie, it's an
Hmm.
Avenger movie. And we're telling the story of World War Hulk because we're getting ready to come. But the only problem with that is in not introducing the Illuminati, you kind of got some big issues with him coming back to Earth, because the whole thing is he came back to Earth with a vengeance because the Illuminati sent him into outer space. So now he's coming back with a chip on his shoulder, ready to knock everybody's block off. So
Right.
it's like, now you don't have
Yeah,
that.
so you probably have to have, I would think, some standalone movies.
Yeah.
That's probably where, like Kevin Feige said, we just can't do it justice.
Right.
So we're not going to try to do that
Right.
until we get the full rights to release our own movies,
Right.
because the studio won't let us allow them to share.
Right.
'Cause
And it
it took
makes
a lot to get Spider-Man,
yo,
and they still haven't done much with him.
but I think Sony, to their credit, Sony actually listened to fans. And
Hmm.
they've done this several times. Because what was it? What's his name? Tom Holland.
Hmm.
When Sony, I remember this was what I don't know, 5 years ago or so, when Sony was gonna try to part ways from Marvel and do their own thing. And Tom Holland went to them like, "Hey, bud, yeah, Spider-Man not being part of the MCU kind of a problem. Like,
Yeah.
fans are not gonna rock with this." And to Sony's credit, just like they listened to fans allowing Spider-Man to be part of the MCU, they listened to Tom Holland, him having the ear of the
Right.
fans, and they understood, yeah, we don't want to mess this up. Because if they
Yeah.
would have released a Spider-Man movie not attached to the MCU, I can tell you right now, I'd have been like, I don't know how good this is going to do. I'm going to go see it, give it a chance. But it's hard to go from Spider-Man's connected to out of nowhere he's not connected. I
Hmm.
wouldn't have been able to bridge that gap in my brain.
Yeah. My opinion. The only way they could do that is using the older Spider-Mans.
Yeah.
So in my world, they bring back the Amazing Spider-Man, Garfield's character,
Okay.
and follow up the story from where they left off. In No Way Home, and because
Which I think
that's where Venom is, and that's
right.
where Carnage is, and that's where Morbius is, and they're coming out with Madam Web. It's
I
about to come
haven't
out.
watched Morbius. I have not watched Morbius. I
Yeah,
saw some clips from it, but didn't watch
yeah.
it. So I
It's
don't
one of
know
those
much.
same things. It's somehow a mixed bag, and I don't know, because I was never a Morbius,
Yeah, me
follower or
neither.
stuff like that. I'm not really a fan of trying to somehow make villain characters the theme of your movie,
So, okay.
because the only way you can do that there's two ways you could do that. One is the obvious, like really terrible things, like people will go watch a Ted Bundy movie or a Jeffrey Dahmer
Yeah.
movie, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you tell the true story and you probably get, some traction with that. But the other way is to make them into good characters. And,
So did you
some if they're supposed to be a villain, not a good guy, you
right.
turn them all into good guys. Now everybody's a good guy. So why are you fighting in the fifth movie that you came up
Right.
with?
Did you watch the Joker movie, speaking of that?
Joker with Joaquin
Yeah,
Phoenix?
I still haven't seen it. I've heard I need to see it.
Oh yeah.
And the only reason I didn't watch it, one was time. At the time, I just didn't have the time when that movie came
Hmm.
out. And it was hard only because I've never, even when comic books were villain focused, like a villain focused comic book came out, I've just never been a fan of focusing on a villain.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just not something I personally enjoy. Although I've not heard many or any bad things about the Joker. Everything
Yeah.
I've heard about the Joker is, yeah, this movie is a must see. So at some point, I do plan on seeing it. But I like you. I'm just like, I don't really want, I want the bad guy to be a bad guy just because he's bad. I don't want a sob story that makes me, oh yeah, I kind of understand. No, I want them to be a complete maniac for no reason at all, just doing
Right.
maniac things for no reason at all. I don't want to look at the bad guy, like kind of how Marvel Comics now does with Magneto, where it's like, well, Magneto's, anti-hero. No, I want Magneto to be a menacing, world-ending mutant that despises humanity and wants to bring it all to a crash. That's how I want Magneto. I want
Okay.
Magneto that way. I want him to be villainous in such a way that when he steps onto a panel, you like, oh yeah, it's about to get serious. Magneto just showed up. That's
Okay.
just a personal thing. That's just a personal thing. How I like my villains. I like it very black and white. I don't.
My understanding of Magneto is the X-Men movie, really. In the X-Men movie, he's a Nazi survivor,
Survivor, yeah,
Holocaust survivor.
which is accurate to the comic, and to be fair, in the comic book, there are even, I want to say, even in the early '80s, there are series where Magneto is painted as more of an anti-hero more than a villain, kind of like a mix, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
he actually, I want to say he takes over for Charles Xavier. I think that storyline, I'm pretty positive that storyline was in the '80s. And so
Okay.
it's not something foreign to him. I just think he works better as that dude that's really gonna just wreak havoc, pull a moon down on the earth and stuff like that. That's how I like Magneto. Just
Okay.
complete menace.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, I probably see him that way. Because it's just, I mean, Holocaust survivor doesn't just make me super sympathetic for him.
Right.
And I'm trying to remember how they did it in the first class. They go back with Fossbender's version, uh,
Which he did a very
and
good job.
I'm not sure what all they did any differently, except threatened his family or something like that, and then killed his family, I think.
I
So
can't remember
you're
what they
supposed
did
to
in the
feel
movie.
for that, but then but when he's out there, it's just like I can see from just the real quick story of the backstory to the point of view that he has, and he's a villain with a point of view. That's the difference between a villain with a point of view and a villain that's actually where he's really a good guy. You
Right.
know,
Right. Yeah, you're right.
it's a
It's a
villain
very
with a
good
point
point.
of view trying to do something that he thinks is good, and you can understand why he's doing it, but it's obviously bad.
Right. Like, yeah, bro,
Is
this
the way
is
that they've classically been explained, I guess,
right.
is better. Um, I mean, you could go back to Hitler and do that in some way.
Yeah.
At one point, it's obviously bad, and yes, Hitler's bad. But what was the beginning part of that?
Right.
Where did he come from,
Right.
and why? But not to get into that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's the thing. Is I hear about all these. Craven, I guess, is about to come out.
Yeah. Craven the
And
Hunter.
I don't know what that's exactly going to be. Carson's tried to tell me what it is. He's
I've
just supposed to be the greatest hunter.
I am not a fan of taking people, again, heads are going to explode, people are going to disagree. I have a problem with taking B and C list characters and trying to build something around them.
Hmm.
I think you can have those characters as side characters to a bigger plot, but I think to build, I get it. They're trying to introduce a bunch of different characters in the Marvel universe, but I don't think giving like Craven his own movie was the way to do that. Just like I don't
Hmm.
think giving Morbius his own movie was the way to do that. I think there's other ways to do that.
Right.
I think it would be akin to imagine him giving Doc Ock his own movie. I'm gonna be honest. As much as I
Right.
love Doc Ock as a villain, I love Doc Ock as a villain. I'm not sitting to watch no Doc Ock movie. I'm sorry.
Hmm.
I'm not interested. Not interested at
Yeah.
all.
Well, and the counter side to that is that the only way you could otherwise introduce them is by having your Spider-Man and he's doing something, but then the movie is focused. The Spider-Man 2 is Doc Ock's movie. Is the Spider-Man's
It
doing
is.
something, and then you're bringing in this evil guy that, or the bad guy, and it's what it is, you
That
know.
works for me.
And
That works for me
yeah,
because it's a hero villain. I can deal with a hero villain centered story, but
hmm
I can't deal with, and this is just personal opinion, guys. Don't let your minds go crazy. This is just how I feel personally. This is not law. You might disagree. I cannot deal with a villain centered story. I'm just, that doesn't interest me. It has never interested me. As a matter of fact, I'm trying to think through my comic book collection. I might have to pull out some books and search. I don't think I have any book in my entire collection that is a villain centered story. All my books are either a superhero book with a villain in it that's kind of centering around this story with the villain, and or just a
hmm
superhero story with some villains in the background, but never a villain centered story. I just not interested.
right.
I'm just like, I'm good.
I guess you could say Joker is the best example of trying to do that right, because the Joker is crazy,
He is.
and it is telling the story of him being crazy.
So
And
I
but
might have to see
there's a
that
lot of
movie.
interpretation to the movie.
Okay. I've
So
heard I've like I said, I've heard great things about that movie. That's one of those movies where even the people I've watched that didn't really like it had to concede that I don't like this, but this movie's great. Which was I was
yeah,
like, "Oh, that's kind of crazy." Like you
right.
didn't like it, but you had to acknowledge that
It's
yeah,
that's
this is a
kind of
great
where
movie.
I'm at too. It's like
Yeah,
it's a really well done movie. It's really good, and so not telling you anything about it. You gotta watch it,
I'm going to watch it.
but I
I'm going to
don't
watch it.
like the movie that the same way you're saying.
Yeah.
It's a villain centered thing. It's about the villain, but it's not changing him into a super sympathetic character.
So it's good.
And so it's a good movie. It's a
Okay.
Jeffrey Dahmer story.
I'm gonna add the Joker to my list of movies that I need to check out. I need to check out that. And I haven't watched Peacemaker season 1. Everybody tells me
Oh,
that Peacemaker season 1 is really good. I don't know. It didn't really, me personally, it didn't
I haven't
really
told you that, so don't say everybody.
it didn't intrigue me, but a lot of people have said it's good. So another one I'm gonna watch. I kind of, again, I'm niche. I can deal. I'm not uptight. I can deal with certain things, but certain things just for me go a little too far, and I'm like, all right, this is a little much. Um,
Mhm.
The Boys. The Boys is a super intriguing series, but I'm not gonna lie, it just I watch it and I'm like,
Yeah, I quit
yo, I
watching it.
get it, but you have just gone far enough that
Mhm.
you again, I'm not uptight, but this is just a little too much for me. I'm not saying it's bad. Everybody's,
Mhm.
has whatever they're interested in, but that's a little much for me.
Yeah, it's a certain perspective. I think is what I see, and
It's
trying to.
strong.
Yeah, it is.
It's
It's very.
strong.
I like I said, I quit. Well, I actually forced myself to go past parts where I would usually be like, "No, I know what y'all are thinking, and you need a counterbalance to that. Somebody needs to come and argue with your people that believe what you believe. Basically, is
right.
where I come from a Christian perspective. And like, like I was talking to a coworker, and he was like, he had lots of stuff to say, and I don't have enough time to sit there and discuss it with him though.
Right.
And so it's
It's
like,
like I can't
yeah.
go through all
He's
of
like,
this.
yeah. He's like, I go to the greatest churches, the Holy Spirit, the only Holy Ghost filled preacher in the world, or something like that, since Billy Graham. I'm like, oh man,
Like,
just
okay,
just
okay.
grit your teeth and walk away.
Yeah. You and
Um,
I think with movie reviews it's the same way. It's like you don't have to
yeah,
say this is the greatest or it is the worst. You
right.
can say I enjoyed this. And then look,
And there's some people you can't talk to
right.
about it.
And I realize there are some movies. I'm not saying that there aren't movies that are just bad, just objectively bad. They
Hmm.
exist. They exist. I admit they exist. I don't think I don't think movies that are just bad across the board are the norm, honestly. I don't. And the reason I say that is even if I don't like the plot, even if it's not my cup of tea, like again, like something like The Boys, I understand. I can see the work that was put into this. I can see the thought that was put into the story, even though I don't like it. I can see, okay, I got to concede that this was done well. I don't like it, but it was done well. Every
Hmm.
now and again, that movie comes along that it's like, like I don't like this, and it's not just a matter of my taste. Like, I'm not sure if this is good. And maybe my opinion is wrong, but going back to our original conversation, I don't know if I can say Rebel Moon is objectively bad. Like, I don't like I have a hard
Yeah, if you're
time. I'm
doing it
just like,
objectively,
it's like I
that's that
can't
critic thoughts. Like,
it's like I
is
can't
that
say this
shot
is
well done?
bad. Yeah.
Is there a bad slow mo shot?
And I can't say I'm
Um,
like, this is
Actually,
actually
I think it was Tyrone Magnus that mentions the guy being shot in slow mo. It may have been somebody else, but somebody was shot in slow mo a whole bunch of times, and he's just it's a cool slow mo shot, but it's a terrible shot. It's like a terrible. Why did you think to shoot the
yeah.
guy that
It's
much?
like it's cheesy.
And I just, yeah, it's super
Yeah.
cheesy, but it's like, but that's still cool. It's slow.
Cheesy, but I get it. I get it. It's not look, I think and I brought this up before. There are some movies that I think objectively speaking, you can look at and go, wow, man, I think this is a masterpiece. I always bring up Interstellar because Interstellar for me checked off so many boxes. Acting, check. Visuals, check. Score, check. Like pacing, check. Storyline structure, check. Like everything I was like, I went into this movie and I was like, oh, well, okay. This is alrighty then. I really enjoyed this. Objectively, this was just a good movie. And maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe somebody else comes along and say, nope, this is where I have critiques. It was bad here, here, and here. I'm willing to concede that. I'm I'm noticing that I'm not given that same grace with Rebel Moon. Like I'm when I tell you, like some of my I'm not saying all my comments are bad, but some of my comments I'm getting flamed like complete torch. And I'm not mad. I
Mm.
actually I welcome the negative comments because I've always said this. When I start getting negative comments, that's when I know my channel's growing. Like, okay, the
Yeah.
negative comments have come out. My channel must be growing and doing some damage because Bella, and I wasn't
Yeah.
expecting it like I got with this movie. I mean, it was like some of the comments, I was just like, oh man, like, okay, tell me how you really
I think
feel.
that's just that loud people. It doesn't make it's funny because I've gone into some comments on like Instagram and I made some comment just responding to somebody who was saying something in one comment part of this is one whole okay, it's the main thought, right? And
Mhm.
then one person says something and then there's comments underneath that. And another person says another thing and there's comments underneath that. And this same guy, I just happened to find it. He said something and then I responded to him and he was just trying to argue with me. And I'm like, I'm not sure what you're trying to argue with me about. And I went and read other comments later, and I'm like, he's saying the exact opposite thing. Like, I don't know what this guy is after. Is
I
he
think
trolling
I
or
think it's
what?
trolls. I could like some of my comments. Sometime like I'll read them. I enjoy reading my comics, even the ones that blast me. And sometime I read them and I'm like, I'm pretty sure you're trolling. Like I'm pretty positive you're trolling and looking for a response. But I like how you get down. This is funny. It's hilarious. Like the comments are hilarious. So I'm like,
Yeah,
yeah, I get it, but I'm not gonna participate. And then I think you're right. I think I'll end on this note because we've been going for a while.
yeah,
I think the loud. I'm not gonna say minority because there's a legit group of people that don't like this movie. I think some of that is based on hatred for Zack Snyder and not really a critique of the movie. I'll let you finish with a comment.
yeah. That was what I was seeing too. Is like a lot of things. Like I'd read some of them already. It's just like hate slow mo. Da 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 da. It's like I can't see that because I'm from a different perspective and stuff like that. And it's not just because I like Snyder, because I can dislike some of his movies too, and then objectively think this was a well shot movie. I for a long time I didn't like Dawn of the Dead. I really don't care for Dawn of the Dead that much, but I can go and watch it and see that first that one scene when they first are all getting sick is a one shot, and it's like a long one shot, and I'm like, wow, that was really well done when I revisited it. So I can see that, and I can look at it and say, okay, that's well done, and this and that. He's got his slow mo. That's pretty cool. He didn't overdo it with the girl character. It's not an agenda themingly driven thing. Um, and the different characters in the movie are like, I'm intrigued by the general because I always like Jaimin Hunshu.
Yeah,
I think that's how you
I
pronounce his
think
name.
Tim Jum
I
Hamsa,
love
something like
him,
that.
and
Yeah.
yeah, everything he does. It seems like I love to see whatever that is and follow through. Since Amistad, so I've been a fan of his from the beginning.
He knocks rolls out the park. He really
He
does.
does. So I'm intrigued by the characters, and like I said, the last part where Noble is going through the different characters and saying this is this and this. I was shocked, and maybe he's not, but shocked to see him kill off the oh my goodness, the character that jumped with the spear through the gun.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
And I'm
yeah.
forgetting his name
You
for the
told.
life of
Hold
me.
on. Let me.
Ray. Um,
Yeah, I'm going through the. Yeah, Ray Fisher, Darian
yeah, Ray
Bloodaxe.
Fisher.
Yeah, Darian Bloodaxe.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Blood Axe. But Ray Fisher, just him, he's an amazing actor.
he is.
You know, love him as Cyborg, and then this, and he's done too many plays otherwise, so I haven't seen him in those kind of
Right.
things. But but yeah, I mean, just the short time he was in it, and that scene, which there's two scenes that people go back and forth, which one's better. The other character, so who I forget who pointed it out. Probably Nerdrotic
Okay.
that said that he is like a Boris Vallejo
Oh,
drawing
okay.
or something like that.
Okay.
He's jumping onto the griffin.
I think I
Is
did.
that shot or the spear shot that's the best shot in the movie or something like that? But maybe they don't kill him. Maybe he's just hurt and they somehow save him. Um, but then Neurotic said something like he's got to bring his sister into the movie, the next movie, or something like that.
I like
I get
Charlie
it.
Hunnam's character. I was surprised that they
I
got.
like it also.
Yeah, I was surprised they got him out of there so quick. I was like, man, I actually like the double cross kind of character. I was like, man,
Hmm.
like I was.
See, now people may criticize it, but that was done better than the Last Jedi's double cross character.
Mm,
Um, I forget his name now, famous actor. if you don't just keep looking at the things, you forget stuff. But
Yeah.
oh man, Benicio del Toro,
Oh yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
believe,
Let me see.
and
Let's see, Last Jedi.
yeah, that was the wrong way to do the betraying traitorous character than the
Yeah,
Last Jedi.
and like I said, things like that I enjoyed. I don't. I get people have their opinions, and I'm not saying people have to agree with me. By no means am I saying that, but I am saying there are certain critiques which I really don't understand. And I've tried. Like, I have really tried. Like,
hmm
I looked at these critiques objectively, like, okay, let me, and I'm like when people say the worst acting, I'm like,
Yeah, why? Nah, like
I can't, oh, no, I can't
yeah,
go
go
with that
watch
one.
something else. If you're saying worst acting, that's just not the case.
Yeah, I'd like and I try to understand, right? Like, okay, play back the scenes in my head, and I'm like, no,
Yeah,
I was actually very okay with this acting, like all the way through. I think the noble, his character. I was like, yo, I knew
hmm
when he stepped on the set, this dude is a menace right out the gate. Right
hmm
out the gate. When he killed the dude that was over the village, I was like, oh, he's the dude. He is the big bad. I was like, I
yeah, and you
actually,
have the jerks and stuff like that that
yep.
are setting up camp and then I mean I don't see anything that was bad acting in that. None of that.
No, no,
They were acting appropriately for the character that they had. It wasn't some over the top character. Bad acting. Go watch a Adam Sandler movie. They got a lot of bad acting in those
hilarious,
things.
hilarious,
That's
hilarious.
bad acting,
I
but
like Adam
still can be
Sandler.
funny and
Yeah,
enjoyable.
yeah.
He's like a hit or miss to me,
No, and I get what you're saying. It like there's
but
some
he's
there's
still
some
bad.
there's some people that no matter what movie they're in, they play themselves. And Adam Sandler might be that kind of person. Like no matter what movie you're in, you're
A lot
Adam
of times,
Sandler.
yeah. Yeah.
Like that's who you are. And some people it works for. Samuel L. Jackson is Samuel L. Jackson in whatever movie he's in. But man, am
Mm.
I pleased to see Samuel L. Jackson when he shows up in a movie. Even though I know he's Samuel L. Jackson, he's gonna do what he does. But I'm like, yo, I like what he brings to a movie. So
I'm trying to think I know there was something where which he was in that was different. It was just a different role. And I'd have to think about it and
uh
bring it back up to you.
it might have been
But
maybe one of his early roles, like Juice. That was a early role. Him, Tupac, was it Omar Epps? Yeah, Omar Epps. What's another early role he was in? I'm trying to think of an early movie he was in. Juice is the only one I can think of, and I know there's a
mm,
bunch of early movies he's in. But anyway, I know what you mean.
I'm thinking about something since he's been famous though that
like a really big movie.
yeah,
Yeah, there
I'll
are
have to think about it and try to get it back.
yeah, there are movies
Yeah.
where he definitely showed his range, like kind of
Yeah.
like Jim Carrey,
Well, we
Eternal
don't need
Sunshine.
range from him.
No,
That's
you
what
don't.
we're expecting,
Right,
you
and
know.
which is what I'm saying. Like he's the type of character that you're like, okay, if I see Morgan Freeman in a movie, brother, I don't need you to do anything but just narrate something. That you just sit there and narrate the whole movie. Boom. I got exactly what I needed from you. I don't need you to do nothing else. You don't have to
Yeah.
act great. You don't have to be good. Narrate the movie. James Earl Jones, another one of those dudes. I don't need to see you do nothing.
Yeah.
Narrate. Let me hear your voice. Boom. You gave me exactly what I needed.
Yeah, and I think some people that say there's bad acting have no clue how much they only watch movies that have some basic decent acting in it. So
You never.
But I don't see it in this. I can't see what they're comparing, and that's what I don't like. This one sentence. This is terrible acting, worst acting I've seen in 10 years. Like, okay, compare it to something for me,
Right. Or what made
because
you think it was bad acting?
right,
What was it about
where do
the
you
acting
get
that was
that?
bad? Yeah. The lines
Um,
flowed well, the people were believable and the characters they played, their facial expressions were believable.
hmm
When they interacted with each other, it was believable. So I'm like, that's all. I'm not an actor and I'm not a critic. All I have to go on is, did I believe this actor was that person? And in all the
right,
scenes, I believed they were the people they were playing. That's all I have to judge. Like I can't I don't know the technicalities of acting. Again, I'm
yeah,
a fan. And as a fan, if you convince me you're somebody else, in my humble opinion, that's good acting.
right,
I
yeah,
believe you are Kara. Okay. I believe you are Atticus Noble. Cool. I believe you are this general. All right. You've convinced me. Sounds like
right.
good acting to me.
Yeah, I guess my summary um review would just one word would be intriguing. I'm intrigued to see what's coming.
I like
I'm
that.
intrigued to learn more, and it's an intriguing movie to me. Won't blow many people away, but you know,
I
it
like
is
that.
good enough. Go
We
on, yeah.
we will end on that. The word of the day is Rebel Moon. Intriguing. Thank you guys for joining.